It is Tuesday, April 6th, 2021. Welcome to Veda. So I was listening to some talks by Dr. Temple Grandin, or M. Temple Grandin Food, though she doesn't abbreviate her first name, she just drops it. Too bad. I was hoping I'd say, hey, we have something in common. Same with that F guy. There we go, worked in a Beatles reference and a Saturday Night Live reference. One thing she said was that people on the autism spectrum need to be pushed just out of their comfort zone. Don't chuck them into the deep end of the pool. Which, if you remember, I think it was yesterday, I mentioned that I need to nudge myself, but not shove myself. She put it better, I think. But another thing she said was that teachers and parents need to be on the same wavelength. And wow, she was... need a little background here. So let's go way back when, in the words of Aretha, when I was in kindergarten. I was 5 years old, and this was before America became a fascist dictatorship like West Germany. That's a joke. And children under 12 were allowed to sit in the front seat, in the passenger seat of a car, right here, where I'm not going to turn the camera to because I'm driving. My mother was in a carpool with, I believe, two other mothers, I don't know, but whichever mother drove, that mother's child got to sit in front. And then we moved over the summer between kindergarten and first grade. I was now 6 years old, and my mother carpooled with two other mothers in the neighborhood. One had a son who was a year older than me and a grade ahead, and the other had a daughter who was 2 years older and 2 grades ahead of me. And, well, when his mother drove, he got to sit in front. When her mother drove, she got to sit in front. And when my mother drove, she also got to sit in front. And I asked my mom, how come she's sitting in front? Mom said, well, she's the oldest. I said, Mom, how? And I explained it. And from then on, I sat in the front. But I don't know, I've always kind of held that against my mom, even though I shouldn't. Although, I mean, the precedent had been set that the child who sits in front is the child of the driver. And she broke that. She broke that pattern. I really shouldn't hold that against her, but it's hard. Somehow it's hard not to. I know it shouldn't be the case. I know, get over it, right? Well, that's the thing. If you're on the spectrum, you can't necessarily get over it or deal with it or put up with it or verb it. We're very bad at verbing when it is involved. Move on to second grade. I'm now 7 years old, and my mother punished me for something. I didn't know what, but she punished me by not taking me to the ice capades. That's not so much that I really wanted to go to the ice capades, but she made a big deal about what a terrible punishment this was. Instead of me, she was taking the same person who'd stolen the passenger seat from me. At least that's how my psyche read it. Oh, and I was also babysat by the worst babysitter. I'll spare her the humiliation of mentioning her name, but she was the older sister of the boy in the carpool. You know who you are. You're probably not watching this. Anyhow, I held that against my mother for years. Punishing for what? I didn't know. I didn't know, and finally, I think it was in my 20s, maybe my 30s, I finally talked to her about that, and she said that my second grade teacher had some kind of conference with her and saying that I wasn't doing my homework. And my mother said, well, what do you recommend I do? Because the punishments she was meting out to me didn't seem to work. So maybe this teacher would know. She's an expert, right? Well, take away a privilege. The teacher just assumed I had clearly delineated privileges that could be taken away. And well, that didn't work. And my mom discussed it with the teacher again. And finally, she asked her, well, how do you punish him? He has to read. Yeah, apparently I was punished by being forced to read. I did not see that as a punishment. In fact, most of my memory, a big part of my memory of second grade is just going back to the room all the time and reading. For some reason, there's only one book I clearly remember. It was called You Are a Pest. And there's also one book, Alibaba, which I never read because it was so thick it kind of intimidated me. And I later wished I would have pushed myself just a little bit out of my comfort zone. Tie in there. Well, it gets better. I was in 8th grade. Was it 8th grade? I think it was 8th grade. And was it the English teacher or the science teacher? I don't know. Well, one problem with the homework there was by this point I was getting nearsighted. Finally said, Mom, I think I need glasses. It was mentioned that my parent, for a long time, my left eye was completely nearsighted, and they knew eventually my right eye would become nearsighted. I don't know why I didn't get glasses sooner. Maybe they didn't do that back then. I don't know. Was that in high school? point is my mother, one way she punished me was by taking away things I liked, and she wouldn't return them until I behaved, until I did my homework. That just made me more resentful of things. And well, the idea was that for each week that I did well in school, my mom would return one of the books that she made a deal with a teacher. The teacher would send a note home with me. And though the teacher explained it to me too, except the way she explained it was totally different. She said, well, each day she will give you a book to read. That's not, well, whatever. One time she sent a note home and said, he may have reading privileges this week. There it is, that word again, privileges. Another teacher just assuming that I have clearly delineated privileges. And what's with this hand gesture here? They're milking it. Again, not on the same wavelength. And then one week I was bad, and the teacher wrote a note. The note this time said, he never takes notes, or if he does write anything, it is always some cartoon about Snoopy or Garfield. I drew cartoons in her class, yeah, but I never drew a cartoon about Snoopy or Garfield in her class. Why did she lie? This wasn't just an unnecessary detail. This was a lie! Or maybe she was delusional. Either way, you know, the only book you should read is a book about being more disciplined student or whatever it said. You know. So, yes, definitely teachers and parents need to be on the same wavelength. Dr. Grandin mentioned that if she misbehaved in school, her punishment was no TV. That was occasionally a punishment to me, not very often though. Well, maybe I wasn't allowed to watch The Three Stooges, but I think for a while I was just forbidden from watching The Three Stooges at all. I once had a teacher, my third grade teacher, Mr. Craven, when I was 8. His first name was Jerry, might be short for Gerald. My second grade teacher's name was Mrs. Small. I won't mention her first name because I don't know. I loved Batman at the time, as mentioned in the previous story, and he forbid me from mentioning Batman at all in his class. He also taught us some incorrect stuff. We were learning about sound, and he said it travels at 3 football fields per second, and that's faster than Superman can go because he can only go as fast as a speeding bullet. And well, I said, actually, Superman can travel through time by going faster than the speed of light. Because I was a geek even then, and actually this was right when Superman the movie with Christopher Reeve came out, and in fact there he does go back in time by traveling faster than the speed of light, but the way it's presented visually, it's a little hard to tell that's what's going on. It looks like he's reversing the rotation of the Earth to such an extent that the director Richard Donner actually thinks that's what he's doing, but he's not. He's traveling so fast that he's going back in time by exceeding the speed of light. Years later, I was reading this article about things about Superman that don't make sense, and one of them was the lack of any real-world limits to super hearing, and it mentions somebody takes a shot at Lois Lane in an alley and blocks away. Superman hears the bullet fired, and he gets there to stop the bullet before it hits Lois. Except that bullets actually travel faster than the speed of sound. They make mini sonic booms. So he was teaching us inadvertently that bullets travel slower than they actually travel. He also, I think this was so we wouldn't ask, what if they painted the White House yellow? Would they call it the Yellow House? What if they painted it chartreuse? Would it be the chartreuse house? He was saying it will always be called the White House because it was originally painted white. Not true. It was originally painted... Insert thing here. Apparently, it actually was originally painted white, or technically whitewashed, right after they finished building it. But the name White House wasn't used until apparently 1811, so I'm still mostly right. And it was called the Presidential Mansion, but it eventually got the nickname the White House, and then that eventually became its official name. But it was not originally called the White House. So he was teaching us incorrect history, like, well... like that's anything new in this country, right? Today's task, well, can you see that? This is my old Stoker stove, which, well, we found a guy who's willing to buy it for spare parts, and he's coming over Thursday to have a look at it, figure out how to break it down, and we'll kind of figure it out from there. And, well, let's take a look at the other side of the camera. Yeah, I got a vacuum inside there. Can you see that? Yeah, I mean, I've already brushed quite a bit out of stuff out there, but so gotta cut some stuff out here.